Hi everyone, I'm Chris Magra. I'm the director of the Center for the Study of Tennesseans in War, and it's our mission to record and preserve and share the stories of Tennesseans who've been involved in war. And we're privileged today to have two National Guardsmen. If you could introduce yourself, Nathaniel, we'll start with you.
I'm Nathaniel Adams. I'm paid intern here at the center, researching National Guard history.
And also?
And Staff Sergeant in the National Guard.
All right, and I am Captain Ran Pressley with the 278th Armored Cavalry Regiment with the Tennessee Army National Guard, and I work very closely with Staff Sergeant Adams.
And it's a privilege to have Nathaniel as a staff member here at the center, and Ran, it's a privilege to have you and record your story. If you could just tell us briefly, how long have you lived in Tennessee, and how long have you served?
Yeah, all right. Well, the first one's an easy question. I'm 40 years old, so I've lived in Tennessee 40 years. I'm also been in the Tennessee Army Guard for the last 8 years. 8.5 years, something like that. Yeah. So joined in April of 2016. So yeah, 8 years.
Okay.
8 years. Yeah.
And we'll talk about your early life for a little bit, and then we'll get into your military service. Can you talk to us about where you were born?
Absolutely. Yeah. It doesn't exist now, but it was at a Baptist hospital right across the Tennessee River here in downtown Knoxville. I was born there. Grew up in the Lonsdale community for several years. Ended up moving to West Knoxville. Really around 1999, and we've lived in that general area ever since. We growing up in sort of the northwest Knoxville area, we were very, very active. My brother and sister, and I all played, baseball, basketball. Did very active in the northwest, community with that. Went to church. It also doesn't exist now, but it's been renamed. It's still, the building's still there, but off of Kenyon Avenue there was there's a church, North Knoxville Church of God, and so that was our family church. We went there. Grew up. 2 services on Sundays and 1 on Wednesday afternoons or Wednesday evenings. So had a lot of that, and that was really our that was the bulk of it. Went through West Haven Elementary, Northwest Middle, and West High School.
And any military service in your family background?
Yes. So both of my grandfathers served. My grandfather on my mother's side was in the Marine Corps. He served, and then also my grandfather on my dad's side, my dad's dad, served as up to a tech sergeant, I believe, in the United States Army in Korea. So, yeah.
And so you're born around 83, 84?
84, yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And did that family background influence your decision to serve?
It did. It was a weird thing. My parents were always very hesitant to bring, for me to be considered, considering the military as a career. They're protective people. They love me. They wanted all of us to be successful, and they were able to find a way to be successful without military service. But I was always led to it, and I think it really started one. I'd say it was probably, I must have been 10 years old, maybe 11, and we were up in my grandmama's house, that's what we called her, in Louisville, Kentucky, and we kind of got into this attic area that we weren't really supposed to. I guess we were allowed to be in it, we just were never told, hey, you can go in, and we found an old uniform, and in my grandfather's saber, the Marine Corps saber. So I was like, well, that's pretty cool. And ever since then, I've been kind of had it in my mind, like, hey, I'd like to serve. So.
Yep. And you said your service started in the 19-teens.
Pardon?
You said you're so
20 teens.
20 teens. Yeah, 20 teens. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So no. So once I graduated West High School, I'd run cross country and track there. Went to Tennessee Tech. You ran cross country and track there as well. And I graduated in 2002. So obviously 9/11, 2001 happened when I was a senior in high school. Mm-hmm. And I was at that point. If you want to talk about galvanizing a need to serve and and a will to serve, that was my intent. Like I'm going first. First boat I can get on, I'm going. Right. Well, didn't quite happen that way. I went in, got into college. Actually enlisted. Joined the Marine Corps Officer Candidate Program. Did that in from 2003 to 2005. And as I was graduating college, I was ready to go to the basic school. Quite honestly, I was going to finish this thing up and go. And we had a family incident that required me to make a decision. Am I going to choose family or military? And I chose family for and it was one of those things where there's not really a right answer, but it's one that I kicked myself with for a decade. And so come 2015, I finally was like, hey, look, I've got too much going for me with my family. At that point, I had I had one child, another one on the way. As I'm leaving, I want to make a difference though, and so I enlisted into the National Guard. I was like, everybody always wants to be like a Green Beret or something like that, but I was like, this might be a path that I can do one day, but right now I just need to get through the door and do the conventional work. Yep, exactly. I had a family here.
30 years old.
Exactly. I'm 30 at that age.
And you said you had a child on the way.
I have one already. He's a year old. I have another one on the way, and my sister just gave birth to triplet girls. Right? Yeah, and they are. I'll tell you. They are an absolute blast. We have one of the most blessed families I've ever seen. But
that's awesome. But you still wanted to serve.
I had to.
So the National Guard looked like the option for
absolutely.
you.
It was a good option. It did blend. The opportunity to serve with still being able to live in your hometown. Give you get a ton of the great benefits that really come in handy as a family man. It's we've got 3 boys now, and so it's you could imagine paying for college in that capacity or something like that. It's nice to have that GI Bill sitting around, and so so there's that. Obviously the TRICARE, the health insurance, things like that. So it was, and then again, it really provides that that opportunity to be with good. Excellent soldiers like Staff Sergeant Adams. The guys are really the biggest reason why I'm doing this. And so, it's truly it was a blessing, and I didn't know exactly how much of a blessing it was going to be. I just knew hey, I just need to get in. I need to do this now because they're not going to take me in a couple of years. I'm too old. So I went in and and that was kind of I joined up. As I was leaving,
where did you join
at MEPS? Okay. MEPS, right down here. Yeah. Technically, I guess I joined at the Sutherland Armory for the 278th. Okay. So, right there, on Sutherland Avenue. But then they took me down to MEPS, got me squared up, and then onto the bus I went. So okay. Yeah. A week before that, a week before that was when. Beth, my sister, gave birth to those triplets. So I see you all. Got to go. Yeah. So yeah.
And that was 2016.
That was 2016 at that point.
2016.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. And so what's next? You're in the Guard, and what's next for you?
Yeah. So obviously get on the bus, go down to. I did my basic in Fort Jackson. Don't make fun of me. Fort Jackson, South Carolina. Did that. Had a great time. Met some fantastic soldiers there from all walks of the Army. There was guardsmen, there was reserves, there was active duty. Got excellent training down there. Ended up. Graduating soldier leader of the cycle, that's what they give the old guys, and so did that, went on to officer candidate school. Now this is actually something that might pop up in other interviews, but in 2016, the back end of 2015 up through 2017, there was a problem with the Office of Personnel Management, and there was some sort of leak or something like that, and so. a lot of security clearances that are being processed didn't get processed timely. I'm not sure. Were you around for that, or did you see? Do you notice that?
I had a clearance in 2010.
Yeah, I figured so. Yeah, I mean, he's been around longer than I have, you know. But yeah, so because of that, I was delayed. I was supposed to go in, graduate, and be back home in time for my son to be born. Right. Well, you know, I get in, and you know, they going through in-processing. I said, your security clearance isn't ready yet. You're going to be held over to the next cycle. I was like, well, I'm sorry, that can't be. And of course it was. You know, and so I was, told like, hey, you're sticking around for an extra 4 weeks. There's nothing you can do about your hours now. You can't just walk out of this. You know, and so I was like, well, this is going to be an uncomfortable conversation. So I walked back out. You know, white in the face and like literally hands shaking. I had to tell my wife in the car, I was like, you're gonna have to go back without me, and I will not be here, or I will not be back in Knoxville for the birth of our son. You know, and so it was uncomfortable, but you know, held over, went through, you know, did go through officer candidate school, and then we're doing our big sort of Colmex field exercise, and you know, we're up to, you know, I know what weekend it is. You know, we're getting to that point, you know, where I know she's about to give birth, and you know, Captain Tate, he was our, you know, he was one of our platoon leaders, and he said, he got on the bus with us, and he said, like, you know, Pressley, you know, you got a baby to go see. Get out of here. And I was like, thank goodness, you know. So here I am, like I'm throwing like 240 blank rounds off of me, like handing them off to everybody. You know, they let me go back and you know, get showered up, get all the face paint off. I'm like, I think I still had someone I got back there, but you know, just came just like, you know, polo shirt, just ran, you know, went screaming up I-75 to get back to Knoxville, and you know, I was able to have a couple days reprieve, you know, where I got to see the baby. You know, it's fantastic. You know, it's never fun to hand him back and have to walk back out of that hospital, but it was an absolute tremendous blessing. They let me do that. But anyway, went in and graduated officer candidate school. Still didn't have a security clearance at the time, so I was, you know, I went for about 6 months before it came through. I was able to come back in April, you know, officially graduate, become commissioned as a second lieutenant, and then you know, about 6 months after that, went to basic officer leader course. That was for the engineers, and so you know, went through there for about 6 or 7 months to become eventually a platoon leader. But you know, going through there, you're you know, I went through all sorts of great training there. I was going through the pre-SAPR program, things like that. Now, I was supposed to graduate in March, and that's what happened. However, in January, I got a phone call from our S1, you know, Major Robert Byrd at the time, and he told me, hey, got some news. Hope you're ready for this. And I remember I was shopping in a Walmart park. You know, I was Walmart getting groceries so I could eat. You know, I was trying to eat right. And he told me, you are going to Ukraine. I was like, I don't believe that's right, because I'm still here, and I was thinking I'd be able to have, like, you know, some time before I did something like that. You know, my wife did have, you know, like, we have 2 little ones under 2 right now. This is a problem. Yeah. It's like, well, I know you think that, but you're going. And so, you know, I obviously went through that. So my break ended up being, I was home for 2 weeks after graduating in March.
This is 2017.
This is 2018 at this point. 2018. Okay. Yeah. So 2018, graduate. I'm home for about 3 weeks. You know, one of those weeks I'm with my wife because we have not been able to, you know, really have a good, you know, getaway for a while. So we, you know, went on a little bit of a cruise. It was a blast. But you know, did that. Came back for I guess one more week. Got shipped off to NTC in Fort Irwin, California, for 4 weeks. Home for 2 weeks, and then down to Fort Bliss, where we deployed into Ukraine. Yeah.
So before we get going on Ukraine, there are 2 things that you brought up. One is being a man in your 30s.
Yeah.
With a family, and family on the way, and getting involved in the military.
Yep.
Can you talk about kind of being the old guy with the family,
I had the same
going through
question.
basic training?
Yeah.
I went through basic training at 19, and I thought I was old.
Yeah, I know. Trust me, it's you know, it has its positives. It really does. You know, there's times where you are frustrated. You know, you're just like, why can't these kids just listen, like, or what, it takes an extra 30 seconds to do the prep work you need the night before, so you're not sitting there trying to fight with your shoes and getting everybody late, so we're in the front letting rest doing 1,000 push-ups. Why are we doing this, Well, if you have kids, you're kind of like, they just don't know any better, and so there's some positives there. Also, one of the positives, and quite honestly, if you are assertive and you have any stroke of leadership at all, the guys look up to you in a big way. Mm-hmm. They do see you as not necessarily as a father figure. Well, maybe I was actually almost old enough to be. Yeah, I was old enough to be one. But they see you as as somebody to be respected and somebody to be listened to. It ended up getting to a point where the platoon, or I guess the drill instructors, or the drill sergeants, they were able to, not necessarily put me in charge, but they were able to have faith that, like, I could fix some ugly relationships or things like that. They're just like, hey, they put two people in front of me and say, I can't work this out. Yep. I left the word out, but and then, so work this out, and so off, and I would, it was just one of those things that I wanted everybody to know they could count on me. And really, again, this goes back to the fact that I don't get a second try at this. I'm older, and so every time you go into a like a fitness test, or you're going through a field problem or something like that, you realize, like, this is the last round of this I get to do, and so
everything matters.
Every single thing matters. Every second you have, you better not waste it. And so that was that's kind of that was the mentality I had going into it, and it seemed to work well. It served me well. So that was. But yeah, again, there was. That was me from the professional, like, this is me becoming a soldier standpoint. Going through that, knowing you have a family at home that you either during basic training and some parts of officer candidate school you don't get to speak to at all, mm-hmm. And then even when you're going through basic officer leader course and then on further into Ukraine, like, you just do not have control of what is going on at home. There is, and it is. I will tell you, like, it is just one of those things where you lie awake and your heart is just breaking at mm-hmm. night. Sometimes in that rack where you're just like, what have I done? Have I abandoned my family for? Was this selfish? Everybody says it's selfless service, but was this selfish instead? I did this. My wife didn't ask for this. My kids certainly didn't. Mm-hmm. So, and so that's something.
That was going to be my second question.
Yeah.
Was you entered the military with a set of expectations, and first, you weren't going to be home for the birth of your son.
Yep.
And then second, you're being deployed.
Yeah.
Okay. So how do you and your family, particularly you and your wife, kind of wrestle with that and process that in a positive way?
Well, it was difficult. And keep in mind, there's also a third piece of this too. My employer thought, hey, he's just gone for a little bit of basic training, everything. He'll be back, and he's going to be better than ever. Well, basic training turned into, the officer candidate school, which turned into an extra month. Then I finally, get back. Things are okay for a few months, and then I'm off to basic. They're like, I know you're going to be gone for 6 months. I'll be fine. We'll see you on the back end. Next thing you know, they haven't seen me realistically in a year and a half, 2 years.
Well, we didn't talk about that piece of the puzzle. Right. Who was your employee?
Yeah, so I'm still with the company. It's a Knoxville-based healthcare group. It's named Team Health. They're very, very supportive of me and other veterans. Trust me, if anybody had tested their mettle and if they were going to be, if they're going to honor this, this veterans commitment, it was them. They did a great job. It was through me. I was the one who caused this. They thought I was going to be gone for a few months. Next thing you know, it's been 2.5 years, and I've been gone for all but like 8 months of it. And so. So they were very supportive all the way through it, all the way back. And we can talk more about that as I go. But there was that. Now I think you said about family. It's incredibly stressful. That as the old guy going in, mm-hmm. unbelievably stressful. It was hard on the wife. It was very hard on her. My family was able to step up as much as they could. My parents don't live far from us. Neither do my brother and sister and their families. But it was.
I think that's the key to a lot of parenting is having support from.
If you don't have a village, you're out on an island, and it can be very difficult. Is there
any advice you would give to guardsmen out there who like you kind of join, have a family, and the military tells you, what you thought is going to be different.
Yeah. The expectations aren't always going to be what you think they were. But there are support groups within the troops. That's always the first thing they want to say. And then, as I'm a commander now. I always want to make sure that my guys know that they have an open door to me anytime they need it. Same with my first sergeant. I know he would echo the same thing. Our full-time active guard reserve, soldiers, they're very supportive of families. Outside of that, you have to look at, because the government can only do so much. You have to think about that as well, and you have to think about what can I do? What are some things that I and my family can do to make to really bridge that gap between what the guard / military and government can do versus what I really truly need. And so there's I would definitely look at your communities. I would look at what you have, whether it be through support groups that do crop up. Churches are a fantastic method of that. Whether you're a believer or not, go to one of those sources. It's an excellent resource for whether it be childcare that you need or whether it be a meal here and there. They're a fantastic group. That's a fantastic resource. There's also community centers that like whether it be the YMCA or the or some of these rec centers that are open. Go there and ask for support. So that's. But there is not a way for me to put a value on the resources that the military has in regards to the talk therapy, behavioral health services, because it's stressful. If you just need to just talk to somebody, just yell at them for 45 minutes about how this sucks, it's, you'll walk away out of breath, but you're going to feel better, and they might even be able to give you a path forward, so that's the military. Is that Military One Source that does that? I think it's Military One Source.
Military One Source is a great resource.
Yeah, it's a great resource for everything. If you're wondering where to find it, even if it's not through Military One Source, there is a link probably on there to take you to the right place. So that's
Nathaniel, do you have anything on guard service, balancing employment and family? It's kind of a unique thing for the guard.
It's hard. Because your employer wants you there, and you can't say no to the guard most times. So just having to make sure your employer knows, hey, I'm going to be gone this amount of time. You have to let me be gone this amount of time.
Have that communication.
And it's hard. I've not lost any jobs over it. No, and those who have, there's resources on fixing that. But it does put a strain sometimes on work relationship. As far as family goes, my family's been great. I was in the guard before I got married, so she was marrying the guard as much as she was marrying me. And she knew that. That's a different aspect. That's something different. I did have a question though. You said you went to Marine Officer Training School,
yes,
and then Army OCS. Yeah. Is there much difference in the way Marines and the Army train their officers?
Yes. Yes. I guess trying to put a finger on it specifically. There was a. I guess there was and also you have to keep in mind too. This might also be due to the fact that, we're talking about a 10-year disparity. In 2005, 2003 to 2005, we were at a full-on war. Like it wasn't like okay, we're occupying and taking a couple pot shots here and there, but for the most part, we're about to start moving out. It was like we are in war, right? And so, maybe it was because of that the intensity was ramped up a bit with the Marine Corps. But I would say that it was. There were some things I was able to take away from the Marine Corps Officer Candidate School that really helped me going through my Army training. I said trying to expand on it. We did just about the same ruck marches. Looking back on it, most of ours were truly at night. We bivouac out the night before, and then do a ruck march, and then it was a full set of classes the next day. Classes you're out doing your absolute best, keep your eyes open while you're doing leadership trainings and things like those kind of those obstacle courses. what are they called? It's like the crucible or whatever those things are called. You know, you have to problem solve through how to get over this wall.
The team building.
The team building. Yeah, those things. Yeah, you do them. Yeah.
Those are cool. They'll give you like 2 2x4s and an ammo can and a sandbox.
Yes.
And they'll be like, get across the sandbox and don't touch the sand.
Yeah. You're like, well, I don't think that's going to work. You know. Yeah. But I mean, you got to go with what you got. Sometimes there's a right. There's always technically, I think there's always a right answer, but there's there's not a whole lot of clues to get you there. You know, you'd be like, what am I going to do with this rope? You know, I mean, like rope doesn't have anything to do with it. They just threw it in there so you can look at it. You know, so I would say that to wrap that up, you know, I'd say the Marine Corps training was a little more intense, but it was because it was under a shorter time frame than we have, you know, and also it was, you know, again, it was during a major international conflict, you know, as opposed to, you know, being on the back half of it. Yeah.
So then when you did get in 2016 in the Guard, your expectations were different. The training was a little bit different. But then in 2018,
I am on a plane flying across the Atlantic into Europe. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I know the majority of the 278th because I was with them, and I went in 2019 to Poland.
Yeah.
And I think we had 2 task force. One went in 2018 to Poland, and that seemed to be the mass deployment for the 278th. How many people actually went to Poland? Or to Ukraine?
To Ukraine? Yeah. I believe there's a total of about 200. Not very many.
Okay.
Not very many. It was definitely not a squadron plus exercise. It was really more of the headquarters element, you know, from the regimental HQ, along with a few others that came from, say, like First Squadron. I know there's a bulk that came from First Squadron, and you know, maybe a few other pickups here and there, you know, from the RES and things like that. You know, the Regimental Engineering Squadron. So that was, you know, most of it was from the headquarters unit, and what we were doing. The general premise of what our mission was to provide a you know, I guess almost like a military decision-making process / you know, like how does a headquarters work during you know, during combat situations, you know, or during missions. And so you know, you would have Ukrainian. We were there alongside. Hold on. I should probably back this up.
Yeah, I was wondering why you're in Ukraine.
Yeah, so we'll just start that one over. You might want to strike that piece there. Yeah, so because I started just like, you know, how do I formulate this? I didn't really know. Yeah. So like, but believe it or not, I actually did, like, you know, I almost started making note cards like, how can I talk about this, right? And it just didn't work out. So here's the so, you know, this was for this was Task Force Sabre. What we were doing was in support of NATO. We're providing, I guess mission command and control support, you know, or training to the Ukrainian military, right?
And I'm trying to work out the timeline here because Russia had not invaded Ukraine. Is there?
So for several years, all right, and this has been going on for quite some time. There's been a border dispute on the eastern front of Ukraine, right? This thing gets perked up every time Ukraine becomes eligible for the EU or NATO, right? And so that was actually the premise of why we were over there. You know, there had been several deployments before, you know, before us. You know, I think there was like 5 or 6 that had been before us, and you know, go in. It's you know, it's camped out in Storici. You can look that up. Yeah, Storici. It's outside Novgorod.
I would have to.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's small. It's small, but you know, it was a base in you know, in Storici, outside of Novgorod, and you know, and so what this is really a training ground for what you would almost consider to be the higher echelons, you know, getting support for you know, really battalion up through division type leadership
for defensive measures against Russian border incursions.
It was a little bit of everything. It was some offensive, it was some defensive, you know, and you know, half of it. Well, I wouldn't say half of it. There was what we would consider to be you'll like this term because you've heard it before. But like, there's two different, I guess, paths or different types of military leadership, right? It's indoor cats and outdoor cats, right? The indoor cats, they're the ones that do the planning. They're typically inside, drawing things up on a map, watching scenarios play out, gathering intelligence to develop a good plan for the outdoor cats who are actually out on the ground with whether it be with just a rifle and boots, or whether it be in tanks or close air support, everything. And so what you're trying to do is develop leadership on both levels. Like how when you see tanks going over the ridge, do you just get trigger happy and start firing at them, or do you wait until they get in position? Do you if you're outgunned, do you just try to take out as many tanks as you can, or do you fall back and wait for those to pass on by and then hit the logistics chain on the back end? Things like that. And and so that was those kind of scenarios are being played out for the outdoor cats. It's also played out for the indoor cats as well. The staff officers, the staff NCOs, and and so that was generally the overall mission we had.
So this is 2019.
This is 2018 through 2019. I was there. So we did we did NTC in May, and then rolled right into deployment in June. And so by July we were over there. And so we were there through May of 2019.
What are you thinking about Russia at this point? And what is your family back home in Tennessee thinking about Ukraine and Russia at this point?
Yeah. So at this juncture, there's not.
In my mind, it's early.
It is. It's very early.
But
right.
For you being over there, maybe you're seeing the writing on the wall.
You start looking a little more into okay, well, whether I like it or not, this is my life now, right? And I've got to start getting read into what's really going on over here. And so about the time we hit ground, I think we're only in there for a month or two, and then, if you would not believe it, the Russians blocked off the Sea of Azov. I'm not sure if you remember that. There was that was a thing that happened in 2018. We're over there in the mess, in the chow hall eating, and looked up, and there's a Russian barge that has blocked off the Sea of Azov, and is a clear military maneuver, right? Now. Crimea is at stake, and things there's a lot of things go into play there, and we're like, well, this got way more interesting from a few guys that are on either side. There's basically been a stalemate on the Ukrainian border between Ukrainians and Russians, Russian separatists, whatever you might. There's a little bit of everything there. But they pretty much, they don't really want to fight each other. They're brothers. They're quite literally, there are brother and cousin relationships here. You don't really want to shoot anybody, but at the same time, you can't give the main ground. You don't really want to take ground, so they just kind of fire off a magazine or two a day, and then they just chill out in campfires, away from each other. Literally, that was kind of the way that we were. I wasn't there to see it, but that's the way that a lot of the Ukrainian soldiers would tell us that's how it went down. And so.
Did you have any extra training in history? Did you understand the importance of Crimea to Russia and their interests in the region, and any of the context that kind of makes sense of what's going on the ground?
Yeah, so we did have have some light cultural and language training, really just enough to make yourself very dangerous, trying to mispronounce the names or words, so that it means something probably very different. And we did that. We also did have a good, our intelligence section did give a pretty interesting explanation of, hey, here's what we're really looking at. The Russians want this area. They've wanted it for years. They've wanted to reestablish the Soviet Union for several. Literally as soon as it broke, Russia wanted it back together, right? And so, you can tell a few countries fell in line with that. Belarus is being one of them. But then there's there's others like Ukraine. They're like, no, I didn't like the way we were treated last time, and I want out. And so that there's always been a big dispute. There's a ton of resources in Ukraine, and that was, I think, it's really been the general overview of why Russia wants it. But the biggest thing is because it's geographically. If you were, from a NATO perspective, it is a tremendous taking if NATO has access to all of Ukraine, and so that we weren't really expecting a true-on invasion at the time. We had measures in place. You always plan for everything, but we had measures in place. But for the most part, we're 20 miles away from Poland. We're just, and we're 200 people, which with more of a training setup. We weren't prepared for war for hunting bear. I mean, it was like if we, if they came across, we're just going to get in our trucks and drive away. We're not a fighting force. So that was kind of the look of it.
What did you feel in 2018, 2019, being over there in Ukraine? On the one hand, you're in the United States military. On the other hand, you got a family back home in Tennessee.
Yeah.
Got a new son, and this is a Russian-Ukrainian affair. It's not necessarily a U.S. affair.
Yeah.
I mean, what did you think as a person about those escalating events?
Well, you couldn't have said it better, right? I mean, it's there's a personal element to me, right? I'm a human being, right? And so, those that are closest to me, granted, I have incredibly close friends, and some of the best relationships I have, friendship relationships I have, are through the military, right? But that doesn't necessarily replace, family, right? And so, it was not a, you do kind of lay awake sometimes. You're like, honestly, why the hell am I over here? But if you kind of think of it in a day by day, that's how I did it. I just kind of broke it down day by day. It's like my job is to be as good of a, I was the protocol officer and also the Joint Visitor Bureau officer. So basically, my job was more of was a staff related element. I'd get to go out and be with the outdoor cats when I could, but for the most part, I was indoors and I was doing some cool stuff.
Yeah.
But I was indoors and I was doing some cool stuff.
Yeah.
But I wasn't I was kind of wondering, like, why couldn't somebody else have done this, or somebody that wanted to do it, or or something like that, and so you do think about those things, and it can weigh on you, but those stresses. One thing that I think the military does a good job of, so definitely in the Army, is they put you into, they kind of give you this mentality of like, hey, I've got to. What's the use in whining about it, right? I'm here. Why not make it, just like, I've got to get through it. Today is today. I get through it today. Tomorrow is tomorrow. I'll deal with it then. And so, but that's just one of the thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I imagine you're communicating with your wife and letting her know what's going on. Same way my brother, when he was deployed in South Korea, would talk to us about goings on that weren't necessarily in the media.
Right. Yep.
That scared the bejesus out of our family.
Yeah.
I imagine your wife and your family is kind of concerned about escalating events over in Ukraine.
They were. Yeah. Now I did have some explaining to do with that when it came to the when it came to that barge being laid across the Sea of Azov.
Yeah.
But after that, there was a couple different things. I think they had captured the sailors that are on board and stuff like that. So there was an ongoing battle for a couple weeks. Maybe not battle, but it was like it got a little tense. Yeah. But outside of that, I received some pretty good advice from a first sergeant. And I think he was ready to be penned sergeant major there at the time, but he kind of said, "Look, listen, it's a beautiful thing right here. So we're actually just sitting around a campfire, no kidding, in the middle of the base." And I was kind of like, you could tell that I guess I was a little worried about, like, hey, I got 2 boys at home, and I'm trying to, like, I think at this point, our cat died, so that's another thing you got to, the wife is absolutely in shambles right now because of that, and I'm like, and I don't want to tell her, keep on telling her bad news about stuff that's going on over here, and he's like, here's some advice, don't. everything's just fine over here. And what good is it going to do for you to tell her bad news? I mean, let them tell you the bad news. I know it's something you have to weigh on your shoulders, but I mean, there's nothing better you could do right now than hold that, and if it gets to be too much, you've got us. You can tell us anything, and I did. I mean, I would tell, I told my roommates all the goings on that were giving me gripes and serious family trouble back home, things like that, but that was kind of the day I stopped talking to her about like the potential negatives or the fears that are going on back home. Same with my parents, and it was pretty. I mean, that went a long way. Again, it became more of a like receive bad news, but at least you're not exchanging bad news. And so that was that was helpful.
Yeah. Nathaniel, do you have any questions about Ukraine?
Not off the top of my head right
Okay.
now.
So it's a year over 2018, 2019.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And then what?
After that, we went home. We flew back. Flew back into Fort Bliss. I guess we were there for about a week and a half, 2 weeks, something like that. Came home. Flew back to McGee Tyson Air Base. Got on a bus, and actually, I'll take it back. We flew into Smyrna first, and we flew into Smyrna. And then that's when we got on the bus and drove back down 40 to Knoxville. And you can look at I think there's like 3 or 4, or I guess it's all 3 of the major outlets here covered, and basically use the same camera group and all that stuff, or camera crew. But we pull into the Sutherland Armory, and there's several family members there and everything, but there is a banner. I still have it in my attic. There's a banner that says "Welcome Home." Ran. I think it has a picture of my face on it or something like that. And my family was very excited to see me. So we got a little interview on that too. It was fun.
Nice.
Yeah, it was a good time.
What was that like coming back 40 on that bus, knowing you're coming home?
Giddy.
Yeah.
Giddy. Yeah. I mean, it was just one of those like I'm really going to see my family again. Cannot believe it. And actually, I used the word surreal twice. I remember thinking like I was kicking myself like, why couldn't I find another word? When I'm being interviewed by by I think it was WATE or something like that. I was like, why did I keep on saying the word surreal? It's true though. I mean, it was kind of like I was just like floating. It was absolutely just like I've got my son on my shoulders. I haven't been able to hold this boy in months. I did make it home for a week of leave, but it was just like, man, I haven't been able to hold him. I mean, he's gotten bigger since last time. He kind of there's positive, and there's such elation and so much happiness to be able to go back home, see your neighbors and everything out there waiting to see you, and all that stuff was great. Yeah. But then there's there's also the coming back, where you start realizing my young, at the time he's my youngest son, and he's you can't tell he didn't really recognize me. He was kind of like, oh, there's that guy that's in mommy's phone all the time, and that sort of thing. It was kind of like it took a little bit of time to build that relationship back, and because quite literally he knew of me like probably about 8 months of his entire life, and so it was just kind of tough, so.
Yeah. And imagine there were guardsmen that were still in Ukraine that you had served with. Imagine there's some Ukrainians you developed relationships with that you had to leave over there.
Yes. Yeah.
Come back home, that you kind of had a mixed feelings about that.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, yeah. There's there's a bunch of there was we were over there with not just Ukrainians, even though we developed great relationships with them, but there's also the NATO forces. There's the British there, the Canadians, there's some Poles and Lithuanians that were there. Great people. Really enjoyed working with them. I mean, it was a true honor and privilege to be able to do it. But yeah, I mean, you're saying goodbye to them. Like, see you later. Don't know when I'm going to see you again. Probably never. But there was some great Ukrainians there. Our translators were great. And you do develop those relationships. You see them every day, and next thing you know, it's like, well, see ya.
So you're back home in 2019 in Knoxville.
No.
Do you go back to Ukraine?
No.
Okay.
No.
So can I ask you what you think about the Russian invasion of Ukraine and where we are today with it all?
Yeah. I mean, this will probably be something that probably not sanctioned by the uniform, so it'll just be my personal thoughts. But there's a very murky, and I would almost say, and I don't mean this in a negative term, but almost an incestuous relationship between the Ukrainian populace and the Russian populace. You know, quite literally, those that live on that border are quite. I mean, my goodness, one of my U.S. Army, you know, co-workers. I mean, she was somebody that worked in my department. You know, she's Russian by birth. You know, and so, you know, she has family in Russia that she's able to speak to. I mean, you can imagine that probably raised some eyebrows when you're talking about, you know, somebody that's on a Ukraine, you know, in support of the JMTGU mission, is also speaking to people in Russia. Mm-hmm. The same way with all the Ukrainians, though. You know, I mean, if they're in their tanks or I guess their BMPs or whatever, they're calling out their instructions and they're talking to each other in Russian. Mm-hmm. When they're hanging out, they're talking in Ukrainian. You know, but like it's everything. I mean, who made all those? Who made all the T-80s and T-70s and BMPs? You know, like it was the Russians. You know, it was back when Ukraine was making them for them. You know, and so like it's a very murky relationship. You can almost put it to like unto our Civil War. You know, where there's, and it's all about region. You know, that, you know, you could almost say that, you know, it's east to west versus north to south with us. You know, so eastern Ukraine, I mean, there's quite a few more, you know, Russian sympathizers or separatists, things like that. You know, but once you cross the Kiev River, or the Don River, the Don, right? Yeah. Wow, I'm off here, but yeah, I mean it's been a while. Yeah, but once you pass Kiev and start going west, you know, really Kiev and further west is very Western sympathizing. You know, wanting to be in NATO, you know, and want to be their own country, and so, you know, it was a very interesting culture that was there. You know, I never felt terribly unsafe. I mean, I know I think technically they'll call it a third world country, but, you know, I was, you know, and we went through, one of the things we did for my mission was we were the personal security detail for, you know, our leadership, and then also, you know, again with the JV, you know, the Joint Visitor Bureau, anybody that came through, you know, we were their personal escorts. You know, so we took all these evasive driving classes and everything. I'm telling you, I actually am a good driver. All right, despite there's one instance in my military career where everybody's like, oh, I'm a good driver, I promise. You know, but you know but I was the lead driver for this, and so like, but there was never a time where I was like, man, like, who are we going to get carjacked, or, you know, is crime going to be an issue for us? It never was. You know, there's places we knew not to go to, and that was, you know, as long as you stay out of those, you're going to be fine. That said, it's a different culture. You know, I mean, it's a Slavic culture. They live and operate very differently than we do. You know, that could be because of the strength of nation. It could be because of, you know, the strength of the government and their power and their pool. It could also be, you know, I think a lot of it has to do with the economy. They've never been able to get anything going with the economy, and that, if you were to say that there was one driving force, if I could develop a theory for why this invasion happened, it comes down to that oil refinery that they were just like a year away from opening up and effectively neutering Russia in everything that they stand for as far as their economy goes. Because once that oil refinery comes open, you know, most of Western Europe no longer need Russia for anything, and so that was the, you know, I think that was truly the overall mission. I mean, it was to do it in regards to saying, like, you know, hey, we're going to pull this whole, like, you know, we're going to try to invade Kiev and everything. In hindsight, I don't think Kiev really mattered that much. I mean, you're not going to take over Kiev, but what you could do is, you know, you destroy that oil refinery, which they have absolutely. You're starting all the way over with that thing, you know, and so now you've basically held Ukraine out as a major economic opponent for the next 20 to 30 years. And so, you know, that's, I mean, whether they're in NATO or not, I mean, NATO is going to help them be able to build another one, but it's pretty much done. You know, and so that's, you know, so that's I think that's really where, I think that was, in my opinion, probably the biggest reason for the invasion. But yeah, I mean, I guess we can probably, the next thing, I if you don't mind, like, talk about, like, you know, what it's like to know that there's guys over there that you were working with, and the next thing you know, you're like, well, there's nothing I can do about it, but they are, you know, like, you'll stop getting WhatsApp messages from them, and you start getting nervous about like, well, where are they? Because you know they got deployed, and that's not fun. That's not fun.
So take us through the next 5 years in 2019 to 2024.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So
You're in Knoxville.
I'm in Knoxville now. Yeah. So
All
Knoxville.
5 years in Knoxville.
Well, so there's a thing here. So I got on, came back, started reacclimating myself back to team health. Trying to be normal. Try to be a normal guy.
That's another whole process.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
acclimation.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It is a different different look. You got you're going from. You wake up, it's not like you have to pick out an outfit. I mean, like, you're just wearing this every day, right? And so now you're suddenly trying to be back to be a business professional, trying to find your place back in a team that you really just, I wouldn't say you bailed out on them, but I'm like, you've been away from them for a long time, and so they put me on a different team completely at this point. So I'm trying to reacclimate with that, trying to rebuild these relationships that have, the family relationships. Like Aaron and I were having that is as tough as saying goodbye, is trying to get back in. It's like, hey, I'm back. Everybody's going to listen to me, right? Gosh, I've got a plan. I know how to make this. I see all the deficiencies here. Let me see if I can make some processes happen that are going to change the way we do things around here for the better, right? That is not how it goes down, I can tell you. But we're trying to we're trying to patch up, some relationships. That's a lot going on. I also, is kind of a going away, like, hey, thanks for helping out here, but I got a slot into Sapper School. And Sapper School, just to give a quick overview of it, is the premier engineer leader course. It is, it's tremendous. So I was able to go there. I made it. Well, as you can see, I'm not wearing the tab here. You get a tab if you make it through completion and get all the points you need. But as you can see, I didn't get it. But until I got hurt in patrol phase, it was one of the best training sessions I have ever seen in my life. I would say it's got to be one of the best best military education, like leadership, learning all the. Just to dumb it down a little bit, learning all the cool guy stuff. It's just cool guy stuff. And you're tested to the absolute limit. Quite honestly, I was tested to the point where I rekindled a back injury and I had to get sent home. But it was a fantastic training experience. I did that in October, came back, kind of.
Was that October 2019?
October 2019.
Okay.
Yeah. So. Got through that. We went through the holidays, and then really started. It was. Oh yeah. So next is 2020, right? Now we have something going on. Yeah. So So as soon as I'm back and things are like, I'm telling my boss at work, like, hey, yep, I'm back now. Hey, thanks for letting me do that, by the way. Hey, smooth sailing from here on out, though. I'm going to be, yes. I'm a team blue guy, then, was it 2020 was that the election? That's the election year, right? Yeah, so we haven't done January yet. All right, so the other January, yeah. So that's coming around. So February, I'm out on a kind of a getaway again with my we'll get to that. Yeah, that's coming. So we're going through my wife and I, once again, we're doing this nice little get together. We're trying to catch up on time, right? So this is without the kids. We're down in Key West. She's got a work conference, for 3 hours a day for 2 days, and then the rest of the time we're just hanging out, having a blast. Well, we're hearing about this virus that's going on. They're actually, she's in healthcare, so she was a bunch of the docs that were in there talking about apparently this thing's kind of serious, and it's over in China right now. We're like, oh, that'll be fine. We've had that before. Swine flu and all this thing. We've all H1N1. We've been through this. It's gonna be nothing, right? Well, it turns out that was COVID-19, and so we are, about, I guess it was March, April, something like. I think it was March. Obviously that all breaks down, and April 1st, April 5th maybe. I'm put on orders to be a project officer at the Sutherland Avenue Armory. All right, so I'm a regimental. I'm I'm working out of the S4 shop, and kind of working through a few different projects they have going for upgrades and things like that. So I'm there for a year and a half. Really 5 months into it, things are going well. But look, I guess we can back up 3 months.
Working through COVID and all the COVID.
Working through COVID, exactly.
All that stuff that
there's a lot.
I don't want to forget.
Yeah, there's a lot of wild stuff there. But 3 months into my time there, obviously, we've gotten to a point where we have a couple. I guess they like to call themselves anti-fascists, but I think they're fascists myself. They've started, drumming up a bunch of crazy stuff going across the entire country. They're setting fire to buildings and cities, and Seattle's turned into I guess their own Portlandia or whatever they called it. So they're doing that. Maybe it's Portland. Portland's doing. Maybe Seattle's okay, but we are summoned to D.C. You were there.
I was there.
You were there with me, right?
Yeah.
You were B-Trip at that time still, right? Or were you A-Trip?
I was A-Trip then.
You were A-Trip then,
But
yeah. So
I was there with Hibbett.
yeah, that's right. Yeah. So so we're going up there, in support of, I guess, really the Metro Police, and everybody else is trying to keep the city intact, because there was like 300,000 people in there. There was a big group, and most of those 300,000, I'll tell you, 95% of the 300,000 really were just out there to protest.
Is this 2020, 21?
This is 2020.
Yeah.
2020. Yeah. So it was June 2020, right? And so we're basically we're a quick reaction force for that. And we. I guess that's about as much detail as I'd rather go into from there. But we did a lot of up training, for riot shields and things like that. Just making sure, if these people come through this gate in Lafayette Park, I need to be able to, we're going to be it. I can imagine there's all sorts of really ugly things waiting for them on the other side of the fence, into the White House. But but for right now, this is going to be us, And so we were prepared for that.
Can I ask you to again think as a person?
Yeah.
I mean, these are fellow Americans.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, what's your thought process, just as a person, about thinking about taking up arms against fellow Americans?
Yeah, it's not pleasurable at all.
Yeah.
I mean, it's which side you're going to be on, because there's a delineator here, and it's that we're wearing a uniform, they're not, right? So that's really the only thing. We're all going to speak the same language. We're all going to be yelling if this thing actually came down. It's going to be a lot of confusion. And the only delineator is, if you see somebody, physically attack one of your soldiers, it's on. It's just, that's where it's going to have to go, right? And so, but that is quite literally it. These people, I guarantee you, you're working with them, you're eating across the restaurant from each other, everything. You would never have a problem with them, and suddenly, here we are, right? It's come to this, and it was a very, I would say that was tense. You're also hearing the reports coming in, seeing videos. That's the thing. We all still had access to social media, so you're able to see real time things where there's National Guardsmen right down the street that are getting in a fisticuffs, a scuffle with people who are trying to rush them and trying to destroy national monuments and things like that. And so you're like, we got a really big one right behind us. We were at the White House, and so it's like we got a really big one behind us. They probably really want to get at this one if they can, and so you're nervous, and at this point I've been with at the time I was a B Troop. I've been with them for a while, and I've developed a lot of good relationships with them. I like them, I love them. They're my guys, and so now I'm like, man, they're actually, this is really gonna be one of those things where I have to stand behind them. Can't stand in front of them in this one. One dude standing in front of with a charge and riot, is not going to do much good. I had to be back to direct everything. So now my guys are going to be quite literally. I'm going to be watching them take impact. It's a nervous thing. Fortunately, I never did.
And it had to be interesting for you to come back from the Ukraine, where you're kind of training folks for this border issue.
Yep.
Where it's Russian peoples versus Russian-speaking peoples in Ukraine, and here you are in the nation's capital.
Yes. Yeah.
Where these are Americans.
Yeah, it was wild.
It's not a foreign issue.
No.
Yeah, Nathan, you have any questions about that? about DC.
You want to talk?
there.
Y'all say, do you want to talk about it? He might have a better perspective. I mean, like
Anything
maybe.
you wanted to say about
Yeah.
that?
DC wasn't fun for me. I was honestly trying to find a way out of it. I was like, there's got to be a way this isn't a lawful order. There's got to be a way I can say no. I had a soldier who was super excited to kill Antifa, so I was like, oh, now I gotta go. So, I gotta make sure he doesn't go off the rails. But yeah, nothing happened, thankfully, but still I don't enjoy looking at the Potomac over the riot shield. It's not a great sight. But B Troop got out a lot more than we did. We were more in the armory as like the second QRF.
Yeah.
So we spent most of our time sitting in the armory. We went out once near the Potomac, but when we kind of realized everything was going to be calm, everything was over, it actually kind of became a bit of a vacation to DC. I went and looked at some monuments there towards the end, but just the idea of what am I going to have to do was terrible. It's like, even though it never came to fruition, just the idea is like, am I going to do this? Will I be able to do this? Will I be able to live with myself if I do this? And it's still the only medal I refuse to put on my uniform because I just didn't like the fact that I was there.
Yeah, and folks at home, you should know that Nathaniel did a research project on the mobilization of the Guard to Mississippi to desegregate schools. So he has studied the Guard being mobilized against Americans or to protect certain institutions, certain people from other Americans, and so then living through it himself. That's an interesting experience.
No, wasn't a fan of being there, but it turned out to be okay.
And so that's the summer of 2020, and then
Summer 2020, we get through that.
you get through that, but we're still in the pandemic.
Yep, still in the pandemic. We had something I have never had before and will probably never have again. That was a home station annual training, and it was glorious.
I loved it.
Oh, it was wonderful. It was a week of a week of us being literally just at our armory, and getting to do our own thing there. It was not uncommon because I only lived about an hour away from the armory at the time. So it was nothing for me to just drive home after a day of work. So we're using our own equipment, kind of doing our own thing, and then going home. It was nice, cush, getting a chance to learn. Everybody gets to decompress from deployments, and because at that point, I guess it was your group, Task Force 2, had just come back at that point.
We came back January 2020.
Yeah. So they had just come back. I mean, it just gave everybody a chance to breathe for a week. Then we go down to Tullahoma. Volunteer training site, Tullahoma. Did individual weapons qualifications, crew service as well. Basically just had a week where with the squadron, and then that was it. We got to wrap things up. It was over. So that was cool. I went back to at that point. Now at this point, I'm with I'm still doing my project officer position with the Guard. Run around doing going just to different sites, making sure our equipment's being put together the way it's supposed to be, and then. Then the election happened. Yeah.
Yep. The end of 2020.
The end of 2020.
November,
Yeah.
On to January 6th.
Yeah. So I guess we can go ahead and move on into January. Right. So I guess January 6th. There was
hell of a time to be a member of the Guard.
It was a wonderful time to be a member of the Guard. If you like to get deployed again at a moment's notice, and go back to DC again, right? So, so that was one of the largest, if I remember this correctly, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think that was the largest rapid deployment of Guardsmen into any particular stateside, area ever.
Yep.
And I don't doubt at all.
Folks listening at home, you comment in the comment section if that's accurate.
Yeah,
largest deployment.
Yeah, largest deployment stateside of the National Guard's history, and that's, man, if I'm wrong on that, blast me. But but it was a massive undertaking. Like we pulled in, and it was just a revolving door of we're getting off the bus, getting processed, getting your plates, get your things, and then off you go. And the next group's already coming in. There's another. It was nonstop. We were So January 6th happens. They're taking their heavily unauthorized tour of the Capitol building, and while they're still in there, apparently this gets worked down through the Tennessee Guard, through state, Joint Force headquarters, and further on down that we are going, right. So by January 7th, like that morning. Might even been that night. You already have a text message saying like, if you are to report here, we are going to meet at this point. You'll be here. Here's your packing list. Get it done. And so I know by January 8th we were there, right? I mean,
Alpha didn't go. I was
Alpha didn't go. Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah,
I was prepared to go.
Yeah.
I was waiting for the call, but they sent you on instead.
Yeah. Well, I mean. We're there in less than, I think it was like 36 hours from the time we got the call. We are in DC, getting gear and getting processed into, getting stationed wherever we were supposed to be. I guess I could probably tell, because everybody was everywhere, but for the Tennessee Guard, or at least for our group, I could tell you we were in the Senate offices. Everything had been walled up. Everything was crazy. The streets were deserted. That was several people have asked me since, like, which was worse betwixt the two? Whether it be the BLM Antifa group or the January 6th insurrection. Well, I wasn't here for the actual insurrection itself, right, for DC, but I can definitely tell you that it was a much easier group, to deal with because they weren't there on January 8th when I got there. They were gone, right? And so, there's a couple, minor issues where, like, quite literally a crazy person that we dubbed John the Baptist, showed up. He was adorned in like this, man robe, and was just screaming craziness. And, we thought he had a bomb, so we're sitting just watching this guy. He's totally nuts. But then they kind of diffused him. Like, there was a, SWAT team showed up, it was like, they kind of checked him. I guess I'm not sure how they do it, but they kind of checked him. It was like, he didn't have anything. He's just nuts. So they just came in, talked him in, walked him out, that sort of thing. So, but for the most part, I would just walk about 12 to 17 miles a day, walking around checking on my guys, just make sure everything's good. Getting orders from higher, like, hey, here's, stand fast or go here, go there, whatever. And we were, in the first one for the riots in in July.
Yeah,
I can't remember. It was some. Yeah, let's just say it was just generally a bad time, right? Just that, but during that we had hotels. For this, we did not. For the first several days, we were just hanging out in a down in the downstairs in the restaurant, so in cafe. So that was about what we did. So that it was a lot, but we eventually got out of there, and it was totally done.
I imagine you didn't want to go back to DC. I imagine after you got home the first time, you thought, I'm glad I don't have to do that again.
Oh yeah,
and
yeah. I mean, it was like,
pretty quickly turn around and go right back there.
Surely as the Lord lives, I'm not going back there anytime soon. Next time I do it, I might bring my kids. It'd be fun, right? No, there we are. So so it was definitely it was an experience. Obviously, it's frustrating because it was political in both cases. It was purely political. It had nothing to do with bettering the country. It was just trying to galvanize us against each other. And that's, again, those are my personal thoughts. I'm not sure who calls the shots on those type of things, but I'll tell you that it was just not it didn't sit well with me that happened. Basically it's like, well, if they get one, we want one too, that kind of thing. I didn't appreciate that at all. I think it was, I think it's just a way to really put Americans at risk of each other for no real reason. No true long-term benefit.
And how long were you in DC the second time?
Not long, like a week.
Yeah.
I mean, it was basically maybe 5-7 days, something like that. It wasn't long. I mean, the first one was a full week, at least. It was 2. Yeah, I think it was 2. Yeah. The next one, really, I keep, President Biden got inaugurated on time. Nothing. I think we stuck around for maybe one more day, and then they were out of there. It's like business as usual. I mean, I think I guess whoever ran through the Capitol building the first time, I guess they did what they wanted to do. They went back to work, and then just like back to it really was just like almost like a business as usual, aside from the fact they had blocked off a lot of streets.
Yeah.
So
looking back on it now, almost 4 years later, if it was the biggest mobilization of the Guard in U.S. history, what do you think about that level of Guard involvement, looking back on it?
I don't think anybody else could have done it. I mean, I think that's really where it is. We have, Pars Comitatus is, it's very, I mispronounced that, but I'm not going to try to do it again. But there's a reason for it, right? You don't want to have, if the active forces are there for a reason, and it's to protect us, outside of our borders. The Guard was developed specifically for things like this, right? There's not enough law enforcement or first responders or really anything across the country to just basically say, like, hey, we're going to pull every available state trooper out of, we'll just say, Kansas, and have them drive up and try to help, with those. Right? It's just not going to work, right? You need a force like this, the National Guard. You need them for things like that, like those riots, or restoring order in D.C. Or across the country. I mean, you saw it. I mean, there are certain groups that weren't able to deploy, to D.C. in the summer of 2020 because they had their hands full there, where they were, and so there's there's a reason for us to be there. Also, you can kind of say, if you want to fast forward to what just happened this past summer / August or September, it was October. It was October. The Hurricane Milton and
Helene.
Helene and Milton, right? I mean, there's
Sure. Sure.
You can't just say like, well, we're just going to have a bunch of people show up and try to fix this unorganized. I mean, there is the military,
But
the
that
National
did
Guard.
happen.
It did happen.
It did show up.
Yeah, there were several that did show up, and it did a lot of excellent work, but without the Guard, you have a lot of issues, logistically, as far as really who's going to control the people that have been hungry for a long, long time, and they're thinking about looting that building. I know as a family man, you got to think about, I'm going to risk something to get my kids fed, and so, but the Guard will typically try to redirect that and hand you a few MREs and send you on your way. So it's a positive, it's a positive force, and so that I would say that was hopefully that answers the question.
That's actually a good way of wrapping things up and taking us up to the present day with Hurricane Helene.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else that you wanted to add about that intervening time between the spring of 21 and Hurricane Helene in 24? It was a nice wrap up.
It was a pretty good one.
It was good.
Yeah. I think I said earlier before the interview that Sergeant Adams had been with B Troop for a little bit, and then he went back over to A Troop. I followed him down there shortly after that. I guess it was 22. 22 is when I showed up. Yeah. So
I think so.
Yeah.
I was a B Troop for 21.
Yeah.
So it may have been 23 because I think it was a B Troop for 2 years. So within the end of 22, beginning of 23.
You might be right. I took command in 23. It was 23. It was January 23. It was January 23. So I went. January 23. Went down to A Troop. We've been working together ever since. And he's I guess I came down there as the executive officer, and then in September of 23, actually on my birthday, I was crowned commander of the. I assumed command of Alpha Troop Regimental Engineer Squadron, 278th Armored Cavalry Regiment, and it's been an absolute blast ever since. I truly, a lot of people have said it. The best jobs in the Army are squad leader, platoon sergeant, and commander, and I fully believe that. Mm-hmm. Never got a chance to be on your end of that, but
it's my favorite job.
I've heard. Yeah, it's just absolutely incredible. So, that wraps it up. That's where I am present day. Again, there's always struggles. You're always going to miss, there's going to be birthdays you miss. There's always that one really good football game you want to go see and can't do it, right? There's anniversaries, family events that you just don't get to see sometimes because it falls on that one weekend, or you're at annual training or you're deployed or something like that. But overall, it is an incredible ride. I've absolutely loved it. And honestly, it wouldn't be what it is without the soldiers that I work with.
Nathaniel, any parting words?
I don't know.
How about this? Anything you want to say about Ran?
Oh gosh.
On camera for
Yeah, that's
posterity.
yeah.
Buckle up, friends.
I was like, can we? This is one of those things we can delete, right? Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 commanders I've had. Top 2 for sure. Probably the best one.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Second place is like kissing your sister, I guess. But I'll take
We can keep that in.
I would probably say best one, and you're followed closely by Bobo.
He's great. He's a great guy. Yeah.
But yeah, it's been a pleasure to work with Captain Pressley, and even when he was Lieutenant Pressley, it was always one of my favorite officers to work with because he listened.
It's helpful.
Yes.
It's helpful for both of us, by the way.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's been great working with him.
Great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you.
It has been a pleasure.
And Nathaniel, thank you for organizing this and setting everything up. And thank you all for watching.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, we're done.